A warlord stands in a valley just outside the ancient walls of Jerusalem, covered in the dust of a massacre. It breaks the pattern of everything we know about the biblical text. Usually, God chooses a man, establishes a covenant. Death is the undefeated champion of this entire system. Generations of Levites are born. They memorize the brutal purity codes. They serve their appointed weeks in the noise and the smoke. They grow old. Their hands tremble. They die. They are buried in the dust. Their sons pick up the exact same bronze knife. The law demands a perfect genetic lineage, tracing all the way back to Aaron. But that lineage is forever trapped inside frail, mortal bodies. Once a year, the high priest takes the blood behind the heavy, woven curtain. He walks into the absolute dark of the Holy of Holies. He sprinkles the mercy seat. He steps backwards, terrified, hoping the divine presence does not strike him dead. He emerges alive. The crowd exhales. But exactly 1 year later, he must do it all over again. The cycle is a devastating loop. But in the 1st century, a group of Jewish Christians is buckling under the weight of intense persecution. They are exhausted. They are bleeding. They are deeply tempted to abandon the invisible grace of the cross and walk right back into the familiar, physical smoke of this endless, failing system. And a brilliant, unnamed scholar picks up a pen to stop them. The document we call the Book of Hebrews is a masterclass in reading ancient shadows. The anonymous writer is addressing an audience, and that man becomes the undisputed center of the story. Abraham is the chosen one. Most people read this scene, desperate for something physical. They are tired of persecution. They want a temple they can see, a priest they can touch, and the reassuring, rhythmic certainty of the ancient Jewish system. To completely dismantle that desire, the writer takes them past the golden lampstands, past the bronze altar, and straight back to the dusty valley in Genesis 14. He opens Hebrews chapter 7 by interrogating the ghost king. He wants his readers to understand why a man who lived 1,000 years before Aaron is actually vastly superior to Aaron. And in verse 3, he uses a jarring descriptor to explain the mechanics of this ancient priesthood. The English translation simply reads, without father, without mother, without genealogy. The word he uses for without father is the Greek apator. It is a compound of the negative prefix a and the noun pater, meaning father. In the ancient Greco-Roman world, this word did not mean a biological alien dropped from the sky. It functioned heavily as a legal term. It described a person whose lineage could not be verified by the brittle parchment of the public archives. An undocumented citizen, a man without a pedigree. To a 1st century Jewish mind, being a pator was an absolute death sentence to any religious career. If you could not prove your father and assume this stranger is just another local monarch, a polite neighbor offering refreshments, a minor, slightly confusing footnote, was a Levite. Your name was struck from the priestly register with a scratch of dark ink. You could not walk into the courtyard. You could not hold the bronze knife. Your spiritual authority was legally zero. To claim a priesthood without a genealogy was an oxymoron, but the writer of Hebrews flips the entire paradigm upside down. He argues that what makes Melchizedek superior is precisely what disqualifies him from the earthly temple. The silence of the Genesis account is intentional. The missing pedigree is not an omission by a careless scribe. It is a deliberate theological architecture. The writer points out that the Levitical priesthood relies entirely on biology, and biology always ends in a graveyard. The sons of Aaron inherit the robes, but they also inherit the curse of mortality. They are prevented from continuing in office by death. Their work is constantly interrupted by their own funerals. But Melchizedek appears on the page with no recorded birth and no recorded death. He stands in the narrative as a perpetual priest. He is the textual prototype for the Son of God. That Greek root changes everything about how we view Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus was born from the tribe of Judah. He had no legal right to serve at the earthly altar in Jerusalem. Under the strict laws of Moses, his genealogy disqualified him completely. but the priesthood he holds in the epic, sprawling saga of Abraham. But if you look closer at the absolute submission of the patriarch, at the total silence of the text, is not a biological inheritance. It is a permanent, cosmic fixture. He becomes a priest not on the basis of a legal requirement concerning bodily descent, but by the power of an indestructible life. The author has successfully dismantled the old architecture, but he does not stop at the genealogy. To prove the absolute finality of this new priesthood, he is about to take this indestructible life and walk it directly through the heaviest curtain in the universe. The sky over Jerusalem turns black at midday. Wood splinters under the weight of a dying man. Iron spikes hold torn flesh against a rough beam. He is bleeding out just outside the city walls, in the exact same geographic region where a ghost king once offered bread and wine to an ancient warlord, down in the city, inside the massive stone walls of the temple. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat and burning incense. The Levites are working. The bronze knives are moving. The heavy woven curtain hangs in the silence, separating the holy place from the absolute dark of the inner room. It is a massive, physical barrier of purple and scarlet yarn. Regarding where this man came from, you start to realize the footnote reading completely misses the earthquake happening in this valley, carefully engineered to keep the flawed human heart away from the consuming fire of the divine presence. But on the hill, the man exhales his final breath, and the earth violently fractures. Inside the temple, the heavy fabric of the veil tears, not from the bottom, as if ripped by frightened human hands. From the top to the bottom, the writer of Hebrews watches this cosmic collision and uses an image that shatters the old architecture completely. He calls this new priesthood an anchor. In the ancient Mediterranean world, a desperate sailor throws a heavy iron anchor into the unseen depths of the ocean to hold a wooden ship steady against a raging storm. The ship is battered by the wind. The sailors cannot see the ocean floor, but the iron bites into the rock, and it holds them fast. The writer says, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain. Because Jesus has walked in. He did not carry the blood of a terrified lamb. He did not bring a bronze bowl that would need to be refilled next spring. He did not ask permission from the descendants of Aaron. He carried his own indestructible life into the Holy of Holies, and he drove it into the bedrock of heaven. The cross is not a Roman execution. It is an eternal ordination. He enters the dark as a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. He is the true king of righteousness. He is not a minor character. He is the blueprint. The real question of this brief encounter isn't just about ancient tribal politics, fully absorbing the unyielding, razor-sharp edge of divine justice. He is the true king of peace, bringing absolute wholeness to a fractured world. The two warring domains finally kiss. And then, he does the one thing no Levitical priest has ever done in the history of the nation. He sits down. The priests of Aaron stood for 1,000 years because their work was never done. The priest of Melchizedek sits down because his work can never be undone. The ledger is cleared. The veil is open. The architecture of heaven has been permanently altered. But down on the ground, a devastating question remains for the human heart. We are a species exhausted by our own altars. You can feel it in the tight jaw of modern faith. You can feel it in the shallow breathing of a believer desperately trying to be good enough. We wake up. We check the invisible ledger. We count our moral victories. We weigh our hidden failures. We drag another apology to the bronze fire, hoping the smoke covers the smell of our own inadequacy. We are still acting like Levites. We believe that if we just get the performance right, it's this. Why does the father of the faith bow to a ghost? That question haunts the rest of the biblical text. If we just offer enough sacrifice, we will finally secure the blessing of God Most High. We try to manufacture our own righteousness to purchase our own peace. We are trapped in the courtyard. The knife is heavy. The blood is never quite enough. The work never actually stops. We measure our worth by our spiritual output, terrified that if we stop cutting, if we stop burning, the divine presence will turn against us. Your spiritual exhaustion is not a sign that you are failing God. It is the symptom of living under an obsolete priesthood. You are trying to operate in the order of Aaron. But the entire universe has already been legally transferred to the order of Melchizedek. When the king of Salem walked out of the city gates to meet Abram, he did not ask for a slaughtered lamb. He did not demand a blood payment. He brought a meal to share. He brought bread and the crushed juice of the vine. He brought the exact same physical elements a carpenter would later hold up in a dimly lit upper room. The night before he tore the veil, the bread and the wine are not a demand for your performance. They are the declaration of a finished work. 1,000 years later, a warrior king in Jerusalem will write a haunting song about him. 1,000 years after that, the King of Righteousness has already met the unyielding standard. The King of Peace has already secured the perimeter. You do not have to earn the blessing. You do not have to maintain the fire. You do not have to stand in the courtyard anymore. Gripping a bronze knife and a guilty conscience, the anchor is secure. The high priest has sat down. The heavy woven fabric is torn open, and there is absolutely nothing left to pay. But to truly feel the staggering weight of this freedom, you have to look back at the entire journey. You have to trace the blood all the way from the valley floor to the eternal throne. A shadowy king walked out of an ancient city, and the father of the faith bowed in the dust. A victorious warlord surrendered his blood-stained silver, and a superior priesthood was established before the law even existed. A royal poet wrote an impossible divine oath, and a 1,000-year-old system received its eviction notice. A generation of Levites bled out their lives at a bronze altar, and the ledger of human guilt remained completely unpaid. A brilliant first-century scholar will construct an entire letter to a group of exhausted Christians just to explain the mechanics of his priesthood. A desperate writer looked for a priest without a pedigree and found an indestructible life. A heavy woven curtain tore violently from top to bottom, and an iron anchor bit deep into the bedrock of heaven. A crucified carpenter brought bread and wine to an exhausted world, and the endless cycle of earning finally sat down. One shadow, one king, one finished work. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the architecture, the golden lampstand, the wooden table, the heavy bronze altar, and the absolute absence of a single chair. The terrifying reality of a religious system where the priests could never, ever sit down, because the debt of the human heart was never actually cleared. If you are in a season where your faith feels like an endless shift in that ancient courtyard where you are constantly exhausted, trying to maintain your own purity, terrified that one mistake will sever your connection to the divine presence, the book of Hebrews is a place to stop. You do not have to hold the bronze knife anymore. You do not have to manufacture your own standing. Faith is not a ledger you have to balance. He is the anomaly that breaks all the rules of how religion is supposed to work. This is not just ancient trivia. It is a reality you have to inherit. If this cracked open something in you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted by performance religion. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who tore the heavy woven veil from top to bottom walk with you out of the courtyard of striving and bring you into the quiet, unshakable rest of the King of Peace. He has just slaughtered 4 invading kings in a daring night raid. He has rescued his nephew. It is the dividing line between 2 completely different ways of relating to the divine. If you do not understand this shadow, who walked out of the city gates, you will spend your life trapped in a system of exhausting performance, endlessly tracking your spiritual debts. The answer to why he matters changes how you view every altar, every temple, and every drop of blood ever spilled in the name of God. To feel the weight of this valley encounter, you have to look past the bread and the wine. You have to look at the syllables the ancients used to identify him. The ancient scribes do not waste ink. Every stroke of the reed pen on the animal skin is calculated. In the Hebrew worldview, a name is never just a label. A name is destiny. A name is function. When you meet a new figure in the biblical narrative, you interrogate their name. We find the encounter in Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. The text introduces him abruptly. The warlord is standing in the dirt, and the stranger approaches. The English translation reads, And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. The word translated as, his name is the Hebrew Melchizedek, marching back into Canaan with a massive train of plundered silver, stolen cattle, and freed captives. It is a compound of two ancient nouns. Melech means king. Tzedek means righteousness. He is, literally, the king of righteousness. But the geography adds a second layer. He is the king of Salem. Salem is the ancient name for the city built on a hill that will eventually be known as Jerusalem. The word is shalom, derived from the exact same root as shalom. It translates to peace, not just the absence of conflict, but wholeness, the complete restoration of broken things. King of righteousness, king of peace. In the ancient Near East, kings were named after storm gods. Kings were named after war deities. Kings named themselves after the raw, brutal power of the sun and the sword. But this man carries a title that unites the two deepest human longings. We see this exact pairing echo through the rest of the text. In Psalm Codex on Kumentavizi, a poet writes about a future where God finally heals the world, declaring, righteousness and peace kiss each other. This breaks the ancient paradigm. These titles are not random geographic honors. They are a prophetic collision. To the ancient mind, righteousness, tzedek, is the standard. It is the hard, unyielding edge of justice. It demands perfection. Peace, shalom, is the comfort. It is the embrace. Usually, these two forces are at war. If a king enforces perfect righteousness, he shatters the peace. The valley floor is chaotic. Animals are restless. Bronze armor clanks as men shift their weight, because his citizens are deeply flawed and must be judged. If a king grants absolute peace, he must ignore righteousness, letting crimes go unpunished. But here, standing in a valley thousands of years before the Romans would invent the cross, one man holds both domains. He embodies the exact tension the entire biblical story is trying to solve. He is not merely a local Canaanite chieftain. He is the physical foreshadowing of the solution. That root meaning changes everything about the bread and the wine he carries in his hands. He is not bringing a carbohydrate snack to a tired army. He is acting as a priest of El Elyon, God Most High. He is bringing a ritual of fellowship, but the syllables of his name are just the setup. The truly staggering detail, the detail that will later force the early church to reevaluate the entire religious system of Israel, is not what Melchizedek is called. It is what Abram does the second they meet. The valley floor is loud with the aftermath of war. Sheep bleat in temporary pens, and weary mercenaries drop their heavy bronze shields into the dust. Abram is the undisputed master of this terrain. He has just shattered the coalition of Chedorlaomer in the dark. He holds the wealth of 5 looted cities in his calloused hands. 2 monarchs stand before him in the dirt, and the sharp scent of sweat and dried blood hangs heavy in the afternoon heat. The warlord, Abram, is at the absolute peak of his earthly power. One is the king of Sodom, a man ruling over a city that the text has already marked for absolute destruction. He looks at the warlord and offers a pragmatic, political deal. Give me the captives back, and keep all the gold for yourself. Abram refuses him instantly. He lifts his hand, swearing an oath that he will not take a single thread or the thong of a sandal from Sodom, lest a wicked king claim he made Abram rich. But to the second king, the man without an army, the shadow holding nothing but a loaf of bread and a skin of wine, Abram does something that defies all logic. He reaches into the massive piles of plundered silver. He gathers 1/10 of the finest spoils, the heavy, blood-stained wealth of his victory, and he places it at the feet of Melchizedek. In the ancient Near East, the mechanics of tribute are rigid and unforgiving. The lesser always pays the greater. The conquered pays the conqueror. The man seeking protection pays the man holding the sword. Abram holds the sword. Abram possesses the covenant promise from the creator of the universe. He is the man God personally called out of Ur to carry the divine blessing to the nations. He is the absolute apex of the biblical narrative in this moment. And yet, without a single command from heaven, without a moment of hesitation, he holds all the cards. He holds all the wealth. And out from the city gates walks a shadow. Abram surrenders 10% of his triumph to a priest he has just met. The tithe is not a diplomatic courtesy. It is a revelation of hierarchy. Abram recognizes instinctively that the priesthood this man carries supersedes his own chosen status. Melchizedek opens his mouth and pronounces a blessing over Abram. The writer of Hebrews will later remind us of an unbending universal rule. The lesser is always blessed by the greater. The father of the Jewish nation, the patriarch of the covenant, yields the right of way to a man who belongs to no recognized lineage. And then, just as abruptly as he appeared, the king of Salem turns around and walks away. The text completely leaves him behind. The grand biblical narrative surges forward. Isaac is born. Jacob wrestles the angel in the dark. Moses climbs the burning mountain. Aaron puts on the jeweled breastplate of the high priest. For 10 centuries, the descendants of Abram build a massive, bloody, exhausting religious machine, centered entirely around the chosen tribe of Levi. The ghost in the valley fades into ancient history, but exactly 1,000 years later, a young warrior king conquers that very same city, sits on its newly claimed throne, and picks up a stringed instrument to write a song. For 10 centuries, the name is buried under a mountain of animal bones and temple incense. Israel builds an empire of sacrifice. Blood poured on the bronze altar. He brings a loaf of bread and a skin of wine. He has no genealogy recorded in a book. Smoke rising in the desert air. The heavy linen garments of the Levite priests, worn thin by the endless, exhausting repetition of killing animals to cover human failure. The law is absolute. Only a Levite can offer the blood. Only a descendant of Aaron can walk behind the heavy curtain. Any king from the royal tribe of Judah who dares to carry a censer into the temple will be struck with leprosy or death. The crown and the altar are kept brutally separate. The throne demands unyielding justice. The altar requires bleeding mercy. The two realms are not permitted to touch. Then, King David, a warrior from the tribe of Judah, sits in the city of Jerusalem and writes Psalm 110. It is a violent, cosmic song. He writes about a sovereign crushing kings on the day of battle. He writes about a master sitting at the right hand of the divine throne. And then, in verse 4, the poetry stops. A divine oath drops like an anvil into the middle of the text. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. If feeling the hidden architecture of these verses suddenly snap into focus is stirring something awake in your mind, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. That is obsessively precise about genealogies. He has no backstory. He appears for exactly 3 verses in Genesis chapter 14. So the poet writes an impossible sentence. A king from Judah cannot be a priest. A sovereign wearing a crown cannot carry the blood of atonement, unless the entire Levitical system was never meant to be the final word. The priests of Levi die. They grow old. Their hands tremble. They are buried in the dirt. And their sons take up the bronze knife to start the cycle over again. The altar is a machine that never actually cures the disease of the human heart. It only pushes the debt forward. The oath in Psalm 110 is not a piece of poetic exaggeration. It is a legal eviction notice. The Creator is swearing by his own life that a day is coming when the endless cycle of Aaron will be replaced by a shadow older than the law itself. An order that does not require the right genetic lineage. An order where the King of Righteousness and the Priest of Peace are finally the exact same person. The ghost from Genesis 14 is summoned to prove that God has a superior system hiding in plain sight, but it will take another 1,000 years. A Roman execution, and an exhausted group of first-century believers before someone finally explains how the trap is sprung, speaks a single blessing. takes 10% of the warlord's hard-won plunder, and vanishes completely from the historical narrative. Stand in the courtyard of the Jerusalem temple. The stone floor is slick. The massive bronze altar radiates violent heat. Smoke burns the eyes. The thick scent of roasting meat and burning hair mixes with the sharp, metallic tang of fresh blood. A priest in a heavy white linen tunic steps forward. He takes a terrified lamb. He draws the bronze knife. He catches the deep red flow in a bowl. He splatters it against the horns of the altar. He washes his hands. He turns around. Another man is waiting. Another animal is dragged forward. Another throat is cut. Another bowl is filled. From sunrise to sunset, the knife never stops. The fire never goes out. The priests never sit down. The architecture of the ancient tabernacle tells the whole story. There are no chairs in the holy place. There is a golden lampstand. There is a table for the sacred bread. There is an altar for the sweet incense. But there is absolutely nowhere to rest. The posture of the ancient priest is perpetual exhaustion. The work of covering human failure is never actually finished. The blood of a goat only lasts until tomorrow. The blood of a bull only pushes the spiritual debt to the next calendar year. The guilt always returns. The shame always bleeds right through the bandages. The altar is not a mechanism of transformation. It is a ledger of debt.